Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to another fun episode of KCPS Homeroom on 38th Spot here. We've been doing some episodes throughout the season where we talk to students that I have had in the past, and mostly in the creative writing department at Paseo Academy. And what's been fun is, as we've been asked to do this show again, I've been experimenting with who else we might know that came from our school district that's out there in our world today, and if they would be interested. So if you know people also that fit that characteristic and would like to come on here and talk, then that's exactly what we're going to continue with. So today I'm joined by a wonderful person and poet and playwright and all-around artist. And again, she comes from KCPS. And so she was recommended to me by a great close co-worker friend, Andrea Cook. And I'm just going to let Ms.Clay here tell you a little bit about herself and kind of her story as she came from our schools, and which one in particular. Okay, so
Absolutely.
take it away, Ms.Clay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris. Yeah, so I'm from Kansas City, born and raised. My elementary school was Mary Harmon Weeks, and I went there in through third grade. And since we're talking about poetry and words, that's definitely where it started. Absolutely. I was the student who didn't really like to go to gym because I couldn't climb those ropes. And back then they had ropes and poles to climb, and I wasn't good at that. And I wasn't the fastest. So when it was time, the days to go to the library and go to music, I loved those two things. But definitely that is where, wow, I just, something about storytelling really started clicking in. And then I was back, I don't know if they still have it now, but back then they had a gifted and talented program. And then I was bussed off and went to Cordy and to Three Trails Elementary. And that's where I met Andrea Cook. I've been knowing her since fourth grade at Meservey Elementary. So I've been knowing her for years. And elementary, my school was Lincoln Junior and Lincoln Senior. So I don't think they have, I know they don't have Lincoln Junior now, it's just all in one building, but it used to be across the street, the building across the street. And then that was 7th and 8th, and then you just came across and went to Lincoln. And when I got into Lincoln, I just, theater was my thing. Theater and writing and acting, that became it for me. And I would compete in the drama competitions that Kansas City Public Schools would have. And I'm not going to toot my horn. You can just find my record somewhere. I was killing them back then.
Yeah.
Killing it. No, for real. I was dramatic monologue, and my coach was the amazing Carolyn James Voltzman. She's retired now, but she was an amazing drama coach who, in high school, introduced me to people that she knew would eventually cultivate who I am as an artist, as a Black woman artist. And I remember one book that she told me, when you get older, you have to read this book. You won't understand it now, but read it when you get older. And that was Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. And of course, had I read it in high school, I wouldn't have gotten it. But I just remember when I think of her planting that seed in my head, then I remember her talking about Gwendolyn Brooks. Mm-hmm. And she introduced me to Lorraine Hansberry. As a matter of fact, that was one of the monologues. That was actually the monologue that took me to state competitions my senior year. Wow. I took Lincoln Prep to state. Nice. And dramatic monologue.
Isn't that fun? And just jump in there. Lincoln Prep is now actually split into two buildings again. So
really,
and last year they started that process, and so they have two full school buildings again side by side across Woodland, in a middle school and a high school. So it's kind of come back to those days that
wow,
you might have remembered. And it was like that when I went there myself, but it was starting to be over. and they were closing the building next door. I actually worked as a summer school teacher in the middle school for 2 different summers in the computer lab. And so I got to see it at kind of at the end of its life when it really needed some repair. But that's fantastic. And we're going to hear a piece from you that you're going to do for us today. Before we do that, I mean, you're retracing this development. It's so amazing how the memory serves so well on the things that are so important, and you're telling it like it was yesterday, you know. And can you help us also put in perspective, before you perform, some of the places you have performed, so people are really truly ready to behold kind of the performance? I don't want to do it backwards and people say, darn, I wish I'd paid more attention.
Yeah. So after Lincoln, I went on to Grambling State University and majored in theater, and just continued to own my theater skills. Not really so much writing poetry at that time. I was more into theater, and I got into playwriting, but I did understand the magic of prose. And when I wanted to write a play and it seemed short, then I would turn that play thought into a prose piece. And so I did continue to compete throughout college with prose poetry, but that is really where I began to meet Ntozake Shange and her poetry, and of course Maya and June Jordan. I was introduced to all those names. And Howard for film school, screenplay writing. Then I moved to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is really where I began to make my name as a poet. So Kansas City knows me as Nicole Clay. My performance and pen name is Nikki Skies. And just where I've performed, I've done the New Yorican. I've done the Green in Chicago. I've traveled a lot and performed. Now, when I was performing, okay, I'm getting ready to date myself, and that's fine. This was pre-Slam. So yeah. Slam came into the picture when I really wanted to focus in on being an author. So I was pre-Slam. So I was in the crowd where you had to recite a piece that stood ground and that everyone else knew. And then you earned your right to write and compose your pieces. Like you had to demonstrate to the elders in the community that you had a respect for the craft and you knew the shoulders that you were standing on. So this is pre-Slam. So I used to, with my theater background, I really think that's what really, kind of took it over, because poets are calm and they read like this, but I had theater and poetry. I was all over the place. So when people really figured out that I was a performance poet and I really knew how to put these words together, that really got my ticket into a lot of places across the country. I opened for some amazing people. My absolute favorite, Sonia Sanchez, opening for her, who is the Madame, the Queen. And one of the best pieces of advice she told me, and I'll never forget it. I said, so what do you do when you have writer's block? And she said, writer's block? We don't get writer's block. You know what that is? Writer's block is when you don't want to tell the truth. And I thought, that is so true. When I'm writing something, I want to make it pretty. I want to make it strong. I want to make it empowering. And then I stop when that ugly thought comes through or that vulnerability comes through. And I was like, wow, she's so right. And then when I went back and just reread her writings through the lens of that, I saw the good, I saw the stinky, I saw the ugly, and I thought, that's the kind of poet I want to be. Wow. But yeah, I've performed a lot of places.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. And to trace back something that you can give us from Sonia Sanchez, like, ooh, what a gem. That I remember being in these audiences and hearing gems. Like I got to see Amiri Baraka that you said was on your list, and he came to UMKC, and I was fortunate enough to know what that meant and make sure to be there. And it just stays with me so much. that it's unbelievable that I tell other people about that all the time and expect them to know what it means, but then I have to really help them understand who Amiri Baraka is, because
Right.
sometimes not so much the person we studied in English class. It took a really amazing professor at UMKC that opened that door. I think I was 20 and heard about Amiri Baraka. So by 22, he was there on our campus, and I couldn't believe it, like,
Yeah.
really, really amazing. So thank you so much for all this so far, and I think it's only going to continue. Can we sneak in a chance to hear a piece now that I think the audience is probably just pining for one, and we talked before to be sure that you were ready and had a piece that you thought this audience could dig. And so I'll just
Yeah.
give you a transition to kind of deep breath and get ready. And then I'm just going to get out the way and be on mute. And then afterwards, let's get back and talk about anything you want to. I don't necessarily want you to explain your piece, because I think sometimes that's not the goal of the artist after they perform. But anything that you could kind of unpack a little bit that a young writer might start to understand from what you tell them about your piece, like how you got into it or how you knew to write it or something to that effect. I think that'd be awesome for young writers out there. So let me stop and just get you going here. Everybody, this is Nikki Skies, or as we know her in Kansas City, Ms.Clay.
Okay, this piece is entitled Like Moses. It's been a while, so I'm going to read it from the page. Garnered with the same light as you and I, no bargaining, told the Pharaoh, let my people go. And the people believed it. So hundreds of thousands without questions followed him into a sea that parted, because that was the only way out, and they had to go. Now that's a man's man, a woman's man, garnered with the same light as you and I, heirs of independent thinking, clever thieves and never caught pocket pickers, accepting suffering now for a joyous tomorrow, just waiting for Jesus to come. Gonna be shocked when Jesus come back black, wearing an X hat, the revolutionary, telling you to meet him on the post of the field where the dirt spits kits from Harriet and Nat, who both so simply saw it written in the sky. Dust molding uprising souls, garnered with the same light and infinite gifts to prophesize tomorrow and write today, to love the right for freedom for its own sake, redefining love so it's necessary, redefining love so love is necessary, like the careful measures of cornbread, all of self, every bit of righteousness, nothing short of surrender. Your breath becomes harmonious hymns with every intake between dawns and sunsets, the pennies in your pocket spent wisely, listening to people speak, knowing whose food to eat and when to fast. This is the same light for you and I. Nothing outside of ourselves we need to wait for. Your book, my book, Corinthians and Ruth. You write the music, strike the organ keys, no lessons needed. Take truth to the head and pour out attachments. Break bread, not with dough makers, but with farmers of wheat fields. See, claim your abundance. Batter your lessons, spicy or sweet for others to feast with mad respect. Save your laughter and go spread the word and run to them. Running, aimful with enjoyment like children on the playground, like messiahs to one day be admired. Garnered with the same light as you and I, like it or love it, or yearn it and loathe it, for the soft-toed souls and those living on their knees. Excuse us as us poets walk into the sea. And that's that piece.
My gosh, I love it. I love it. And I love how you know that last line. You're ready for us to be ready for it. And that's the last line is something, man. Wow. Beautiful piece. Thank you so much for sharing that. When we do these conversations with people, I think I can imagine people rewinding those parts the most. And I think that's the part that school kind of thrives on again. So I could see this becoming a lesson or something that someone, again, features in their classroom or has a discussion about that piece after it happens. We're honored to have a chance to do that with the poet herself right now. So could you cast us a little insight into your process at least? Or, I like the reverence of not discussing one interpretation of art, but leaving it to the audience sometimes. But as
Right.
we have you here today, tell us anything you want to about that piece.
Yes, that piece, for me, it serves balance. It serves as um, everyone's word is um, is valuable, and everyone comes with an even playing ground as writers. You know, like you said, it is definitely up to everyone's interpretation. Um, to me, that piece just serves as a reminder for me that not everyone's going to get it, but that doesn't make it less powerful. That doesn't make my words less meaningful. They are, and that's what that piece is totally about. And I wanted to bring in the reverence of Moses, and I brought in Harriet, and I brought in Nat Turner, because all of those are important, and so are poets. And if you're not ready for a poet, then at the end it says, for those with the soft-toed shoes that's living on their knees, get out of our way and let us poets walk into the sea. So that's what that piece is about for me.
Oh, I love that, and I can hear kind of the reverence and the honor paid back to even like the way Sanchez and you were talking about being real and authentic and raw and writer's block. There was no block in that message whatsoever, right?
Thank
And
you.
it's so fantastic that it's been a while since I've been graced by poems every Friday in my classroom or in the, but it's just so it is a religious moment when you
Yeah.
re-stir in yourself some of the things that you may not unless you do that, unless you sit and listen and be present and digest and take things in. So I am a preacher's son. That's a fun thing that has always been part of me, whether I wanted it to be or not. And
Right.
so I go back to that place when I listen, and oh my gosh, so wonderful to hear that and to know that we recorded it and other people will also. So let's unfortunately bring this thing to a wrap, and we could talk forever. I would love to, but the thing that we might go out thinking about from your vantage point would be those young people out there and
Mm,
what you could say to them in this moment in our world, in this moment in their lives, uh,
mm.
that they might need to hear most, or that you needed to hear yourself, remembering and reflecting, that really helped you get where you are
Mm,
today, or any
mm.
trade secrets or path reminders of what to do along the way. So it's been an honor and a great um, moment for me too to get to talk to you today. But let me make sure I don't say the last thing. So guys, this has been KCPS Homeroom, and we're talking to Ms.Clay, also known as Nikki Skies in the performance world out there. And this is just me handing it over to her so she can send us out for this morning.
Okay, so for all of the students in Kansas City Public Schools that are listening to this, I dare you to pick up 2 books. I dare you to just pick up 2 books and abandon yourself and live in that world. And I dare you to dream, and I dare you to imagine. And once you come out of that world, explore what it was in those words that let you be free. Because honestly, that is what has happened in my life. And that is what has built and developed my career. It's understanding the magic of words, understanding when you connect them together, it's something that happens when you piece words together. It takes you to the next step. It takes you to next month. It takes you to the next dream. So I don't know where your local library is. I know I would hop the bus and go to Lucille Bluford. And I would sit in the aisles where they had the African American writers. And I would just pull the books down and I would read. And they let me, and they knew I would come in. I don't want you to do this, but the librarians knew that I would come in with a sandwich in my bag. And literally, I would take the bus to the library and I would read all these words. And here's the thing, I didn't understand the majority of it, but later on down the line, it all served me because here were these people writing words that were about me. They were about me being a dreamer. For anyone out there that is an artist, that wants to write, that wants to be a director, that wants to be a poet, it is so possible. It is, but you have to be your number one hero, and you have to have a command for the language that can intimidate people and not knock you down. So I just challenge everyone, even if there are adults who are teachers and think, oh, I don't think this is for me, then I challenge you to pick up 2 books and abandon yourself and get in those words and then figure out what it was about those words that moved you. And then you move other people with words as well. But I love Kansas City. I would love to come back. I would love to do something else like this. Kansas City, I'm here. Mary Harmon Weeks, Missouri, 3 Trails, Lincoln. I'm Kansas City. So I would love to come and do workshops. I would love to come back and serve in some type of capacity. But those are my words of wisdom. I'm from those streets, 43rd and Bells. I'm from those streets, down the street from Martin Street. Crow Cobras used to be up on 43rd, and they come down. I mean, that's my hood. That's where I am. So thank you so much for having me, Mr. Odam, and please have me back.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. Okay, well, we're going to call it a good day now. And so I hope you started here with us today, and you're going to go off and find 2 books and start thinking about immersing yourself in them, and the wonderful, wonderful advice and the great performance from our wonderful guest today. So thank you again, Ms.Clay, and out.